Imagine walking into a restaurant for a quiet dinner, just another ordinary night. But in that very moment, fate intervenes, intertwining your life with a complete stranger in a way that will change everything forever. Lamine Yamal never expected that a simple act of kindness would take him back to a past he thought he had left behind. He never imagined that one child's struggle would bring him face to face with a forgotten part of his own history. But that night in New York, destiny had other plans. As he sat at the corner of an elegant yet cozy restaurant in downtown New York, seeking a rare moment of solitude, the city's golden lights reflected off the glass windows, casting a warm glow over the dimly lit interior. He had come to the US for a short visit, business meetings, sponsorship deals, and the usual media frenzy. But tonight, he just wanted to be a regular person, enjoying a quiet dinner in an unfamiliar place. As he sipped on his mineral water, he noticed a family sitting at the table next to him. A young boy, no older than 7, sat between his parents, his bright eyes scanning the room with innocent curiosity. Yamal had seen that look before, pure fascination, the kind he used to have when he watched football legends as a kid. But there was something else. The parents, a woman in her mid-40s and a man in his early 50s, were whispering to each other, their faces marked with worry. They held each other's hands tightly, and the woman, despite her best efforts, wiped away a tear. They were trying to be discreet, hiding their sorrow from their son and the world. Yamal's sharp ears caught bits of their conversation. "I don't know what else we can do. We've already sold the house, Clara. It was our last option. But what if it's still not enough? What if we lose him?" Her voice cracked on the last word, and the man gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. The weight of their emotions hung in the air. Yamal closed his eyes briefly. He knew pain. He knew struggle. He could hear it in their words, see it in the way they carried themselves. But this was not his place. He couldn't save everyone. Still, when he opened his eyes, they met the gaze of the young boy staring at him in awe. Lamine smiled and gestured for the boy to come over. Hesitant at first, the child looked at his parents, who nodded cautiously. The boy stood up and walked over, eyes wide with wonder. "Do you like football?" Yamal asked, a warm smile on his face. The boy nodded vigorously. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the boy said, barely containing his excitement. "Well, Ethan, I have something for you." Yamal reached into his bag and pulled out a Barcelona jersey. But it wasn't just any jersey, it was one of his own, with his signature across the front. Ethan's mouth dropped open in disbelief. "This is for you," Yamal said, handing him the jersey. "Keep chasing your dreams, okay?" The boy took it carefully, as if it were made of gold. "Thank you, Lamine." Ethan ran back to his parents, showing them his new treasure. They smiled at their son's excitement, momentarily distracted from their pain. A few moments later, they left the restaurant as a family, disappearing into the cold night. But Yamal wasn't done yet. He turned to his manager. "I want you to find out everything about that family." The next morning, Yamal's manager returned with details. They sold their home 2 weeks ago to cover their son's medical expenses. The kid has a rare condition, but the treatment is expensive. They had no other choice. "Where was the house?" Yamal asked, his heart heavy. His manager handed him the address. As Yamal read it, his breath caught. He knew that street. It was in the same neighborhood where his aunt had lived years ago. The same place he used to visit as a child. "I need to see it," he said. Lamine drove to the address, feeling a strange sense of nostalgia. The house was small but full of character, standing on a quiet street lined with trees. He remembered playing on this very sidewalk, chasing after a ball while his aunt and her friend sat on the porch, watching over them. His aunt still lived nearby, and without hesitation, he drove to her place. "Tia," he said as she opened the door, her face lighting up with joy. "Lamine, me Joe. What brings you here?" He explained the situation, mentioning the family and their struggles. When he described the mother, his aunt's expression changed. "Clara," she whispered. "Clara was my best friend. We grew up together." Yamal sat back, stunned. This wasn't just any family. This was his family's past intertwining with his present. Yamal sat in his car, staring at the hospital's neon sign glowing in the night. His fingers tapped restlessly against the steering wheel as memories from his childhood swirled in his mind. He knew what it felt like to grow up with uncertainty, to see loved ones struggle just to keep going. He thought of his aunt's stories about Clara, how they used to dream of building lives far from hardship. And now, decades later, Clara was back in that same fight, this time for her son. He couldn't let history repeat itself. Grabbing his phone, he called his manager. "I want the best doctors for Ethan. Spare no expense." Ethan's condition was fragile. The treatments were intense, and his body struggled against the side effects. There were nights when the doctors feared he wouldn't pull through. Yamal spent countless hours at the hospital, watching over him like an older brother. One evening, Ethan weakly turned to him. "Do you think I'll ever be strong enough to play football?" Yamal smiled, gripping his hand. "You already are." There were setbacks, moments of despair, but also victories. Slowly, Ethan's body began to respond. The boy who had once been too weak to sit up was now cracking jokes with the nurses. Clara found Yamal in the waiting room one night. Her voice shook as she whispered, "You saved my son's life." Weeks later, Ethan's health improved significantly. His laughter echoed through the hospital corridors, a sound that had once been absent. Yamal had done more than pay for treatment. He had given them hope. Then came the final surprise. Yamal handed Clara the deed to their old home. Her hands trembled as she read it. "You didn't," she gasped. "I did," Yamal said. "It's yours again." Clara collapsed into his arms, sobbing. The day Clara and her family moved back into their home, it felt surreal. She ran her fingers over the familiar walls, as if ensuring they were real. She turned to Ethan, now healthier, and whispered, "We're home." Yamal visited a few days later, watching from afar as Ethan laughed, kicking a ball in the front yard. "You changed their lives," his aunt said, standing beside him. Yamal smiled. "No, I just gave back what was already theirs." Please don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel.